Hey everybody, I'm Jack Reedy with Future Pastimes. I'm a board game designer and I work on Dune board games like Dune Conquest, Arrakis Dawn of the Fremen, and expansions to the classic Dune board game, the 2019 edition, all from Gale Force 9. And I thought I'd give my reactions to the recent trailer for Dune 2. It's the first teaser trailer for it. I've been anxiously awaiting footage from Part 2 just as much as everyone. And so I have some thoughts on it. I think that the implication is that the relationship between Paul and Chani is going to be a foundation of what goes on in Part 2, which I think is a good idea. And I think it helps to create some interesting context for the development of Paul. Chani can be a sounding board for what Paul's going through and sort of a audience viewpoint on it. And I think the miniseries of Dune that Sci-Fi did a pretty decent job with the Paul-Chani relationship. So it'll seem like both of these will do a better job than the Lynch movie. The relationship with Paul and Chani in the Lynch movie, they didn't really have time for it since it was cut down to under 2 hours. You get Irulan narrating, Paul and Chani are in love, and that's basically it. So there's not much going on. It'll be interesting to see if they keep in the element from the book dealing with Leto II, or if they'll just kind of gloss over that completely. They did keep that in the miniseries, so I got to give big credit to the miniseries. It's one of the reasons why I think that miniseries is very underrated. It's actually a very decent adaptation. The effects, they didn't even hold up back then. I mean, everything that's CG is very clearly CG, but it's not terrible. So it's definitely watchable. It's definitely worth seeing. But I expect that Part 2, the Villeneuve adaptation, will still become the definitive Dune. There's been a lot of talk about Part 2 being an epic war movie, and they didn't really show any footage that supports that, although I'm not surprised. I think they're going to keep that close to the vest for now. I think late this summer we'll get another and probably longer trailer, and that will hype up some of the epic war action that we'll see. I mean, we get one shot of a bunch of ornithopters flying towards some rock territory. Okay, but it looked cool, but that's not the battle. Anyone who knows the book and has seen any of the other adaptations knows that the battle is much bigger than that, and probably doesn't take place right where that's going on. So a couple areas in the trailer that did rub me the wrong way. I think, and it's, none of it's going to be deal breaking. It's not terrible. I kind of cringed each time we heard Irulan say Atreides as Atreides. You'd think, princess, daughter of the emperor, would know how to pronounce that family's name. It'll be interesting if anyone else also pronounces it that way. So yeah, I just kind of was like, ugh, what's going on there? I'm not crazy about the idea of Fade Routha also being bald. I know he's one of the Harkonnen, and so I guess they're going with this they're all bald thing. Even Piter was bald. He's not technically a Harkonnen. He's a Mentat that they ordered from the Tleilaxu however long back. I guess the implication is that since Gady Prime is such a crap hole of a planet that nobody's got a good tan, and there are no tanning machines that far in the future. I guess they finally got rid of those. I'm not sure why people aren't growing hair. Who knows? Maybe some kind of genetic thing. But I kind of feel like it really otherizes Fade and all of the Harkonnens almost to a cartoonish degree. In the Lynch movie, all of the Harkonnens were redheads, which was its own kind of weird message. And I can understand it. It's a nice cue for the audience to go, okay, the redheads, those are the bad guys. And in this case, it's the bald people. Bald people are evil. And Although not all of them are evil, because Lanville, one of the Atreides, bald guy, certainly a good guy. And it does look like Lanville is the one who's going to be fighting Fade in the arena, which was a sort of a leak that came out last year from the guy who plays him, who's also like the fight coordinator on there. But I think that's actually a great choice, because you have this recognizable Atreides character from the first movie. It wasn't one of the hero characters. It was actually a made-up character for this movie. But again, it gives the audience something to latch on to and to feel, like, oh, somebody to root for against Fade. But this idea of, Fade has to be bald just like the rest of the Harkonnen, I guess it just really, I think it makes him more two-dimensional, in my opinion. And I'm also not crazy about this black and white footage. A lot of people are like, oh, maybe it's a flashback. They didn't really do any flashbacks in the first movie, so I'm not expecting flashbacks to be in the second movie. And in fact, this scene takes place in the second half of the book, pretty much. So there's no real reason for it to be a flashback. If it is Lanville, he was captured in the first movie, and he's a prisoner and going to be fighting to the death in the arena. So yeah, why would it be a flashback? Maybe it's some sort of like the sky, and there's no good sunlight in Giedi Prime, and so everything's washed out. I think it was a missed opportunity. The movie already has a very monochromatic color palette in a lot of ways. There's not a lot of differentiation in the colors. It's desert, shades of sand, and even in Arrakeen was a very monochromatic environment, almost lifeless, the way it was depicted on there. And perhaps they're going to be contrasting everything with Kaitain, where it will be overly colorful, and that's one of the ways that they'll easily set those different environments apart for the audience. But again, I think this is a movie that's meant for a slightly more sophisticated audience than might go see Guardians of the Galaxy on a lark. But who knows? Yeah, I guess we'll find out. But yeah, I think they missed an opportunity to really show some richness in the style on Giedi Prime and what goes on there. They didn't have that in the first movie on the handful of scenes that did take place on the Harkonnen homeworld. Again, while it was monochromatic, at least it was in color and not in black and white. So it's a weird choice. I'm not crazy about it. We'll see how they try to rationalize it. Maybe it'll make sense. So certainly give it a day in court. I think the worm riding scene looks really interesting. It's not exactly how I imagined that most of the Fremen are. They all running across the top of a sand dune and then diving down? Is that just how Paul was doing it? It'll be interesting to see how that works. It does look to me like in that scene where we show Lady Jessica in the little travel basket with the other Fremen, looks to me like they're riding on the back of a worm. I know other people who have reacted to it are like, oh, maybe they're hunkering down for the storm. Fremen don't hunker down out in the open and hope that the Coriolis storm, which will tear the flesh from your bones, will just pass over them. Even in the game, board game of Dune, if the Fremen try to hunker down out in the desert while the storm, half of them are killed by it. So I don't think it's a strategy that the Fremen are like, oh, there's so many of us, we can afford to lose half our forces. So I think it looks to me like they're moving at speed, and I expect that they are on the back of a sandworm. So be curious to see how they load that basket on there. In the Lynch movie, they got the couple of riders get up on top, and then they throw the ropes down, and everyone runs along the side and grabs a rope and climbs up. And so, yeah, we'll see how they manage to throw hundreds, if not thousands, of Fremen onto the backs of the sandworms. In the book, they do, they move the whole siege. They're all packing onto the sandworms and traveling. So they're bringing their supplies, and they've got to have backpacks and chests and whatever else, a lot of equipment that they're hauling around, all their glow globes. So Again, it'll be interesting to see how much of that they depict, how much of the Fremen culture makes it in there. They do go into a great deal of that again in the miniseries, and it'll be interesting to see how much time is devoted to that in this second movie. So by and large, that's what's in there. I'm looking forward to the knife fight, of course, at the end of the movie with Fade and Paul, and we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I mean, I think overall, I'm very positive. I've watched the trailer half a dozen times. I'll probably watch it a half a dozen more while I wait for the next one. We've got a few months to go before part 2 comes out, so I'm looking forward to that. And we'll see how many of the scenes from the book make it into the final cut of the movie. And that's it. Let me know your thoughts on the trailer, if you agree or disagree with some of my pros and cons about the trailer, your theories on stuff that is being depicted and the whys of it. There's definitely some stuff in there that I'm like, I wonder what's going on there. And I look forward to it. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.